Hi, my name is Louise Larson. This is my July webinar. I run August Consulting and I help families on the road to college. And I'm going to start with my usual news and notes. Happy summer. Um, it's been hot and hopefully your summer's off to a good start. Mine is. And I'm going to kick off with my news and notes. And so I'm going to be talking about news and notes, and then I'm going to do a deeper dive into going abroad. And it's in conjunction with a lot of different things. One of my children just did a short summer abroad program, so it's been on my mind. And I also, full disclosure, I did a full year abroad. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some things to think about with years abroad and also do kind of a subtopic around freshman abroad programs because that's something that you hear a lot about these days. So anyway, so news and notes. First thing I want to talk about is hiring help for college admissions. Now, I'm going to relate that to my child did a little summer program in London, and my husband and I were trying to go meet them after they finished to do some traveling. And we booked our airline tickets with a travel agent that we like to use. And it was a couple of minutes. We gave him our dates. Here's the flights. It was like, here are your options. These are the costs. And in a matter of minutes, we had two flights to London booked. And then we went back to the drawing board and realized we wanted to change our dates and loop our daughter into our return flight. And I called our travel agent, and in a matter of minutes, it turned out there was no additional cost. And if it had been really expensive, maybe we wouldn't have done it, but there was no charge. And we got everybody booked, rebooked, and my daughter coming home with us in a matter of minutes. Couldn't have been any easier. Then my husband said, "Oh, we can book our own accommodations. We can do that." Marriage is a compromise. And 90 minutes later, I was like, bug-eyed. I was like thinking to myself, I can never do this again. It was so easy to call my travel agent, so easy to make the changes. 90 minutes later, we had been online, two different computers. We thought we had something booked. Like we, it was exhausting. And so I share that to say, can a parent figure this out by themselves? Absolutely. This is, you can do some research and do some work and um, but sometimes bringing in help is nice because I felt like the do-it-yourself method was not comfortable. It just went on, and at the end of the day, we weren't even sure what we had gotten. It all worked out, but it did remind me a little bit of like doing it yourself versus just calling somebody. In this case, I'm sort of the travel agent. So anyway, that is what my parallel of bringing in professional help for college admission planning is equivalent to calling a travel agent who kind of has an inside scoop on the whole thing. So I will tell you, I'm filming this on June 30th, and I will tell you the wait list activity continues. And I'm not talking about little schools that just, trying to fill their class. I'm talking about really, really selective schools. At the end of June, their wait lists are still moving, and that creates domino effect because if a really selective college calls up and says, "Hey, do you want to come?" Kids might say yes, and then that creates a space somewhere else. So the wait list is the domino effect is in play, and it continues to feel a little bit unsettled. And I'm sure college admissions enrollment people are, maybe it's not an easy summer for them. There's a big change in the Common App this year. Not a big change, but a change. The Common App used to have an additional information section of 650 words. They've cut that down to 300 words, and that's a good thing. It's just a spot to put any other information that might add important context to your application. During COVID, they also opened up a section in the Common App about COVID impact. And, in 2025, COVID impact has maybe waned a little bit. They've changed that to a challenge and circumstances question that will allow you to share any context that might be relevant to your application around a challenge or a circumstance. So that's good. Um, Worcester Polytechnic Institute in Massachusetts was test optional, then required test, and have just announced they're going back to test optional. I don't know why, but so that so many schools have gone back to requiring tests, they went back and now they're going back to test optional. Indiana University hosts the Kelley Business School, which is a very highly regarded business school, and they are changing their transfer requirements. So if you go to Kelley as a if you go to Indiana as a pre-business, not admitted to Kelley, but as a pre-business major, and want to try to transfer into Kelley after your freshman year, they've changed the requirements. Now every class must be a B plus or higher. It used to be the classes that you were taking to go to Kelley had to be B plus or higher. So that's a pretty big jump because, freshman year, maybe you take a class and you get a C, and all of a sudden that changes the dynamic. Northeastern is offering, this is, follow along here, a free online artificial intelligence class to applicants. You must complete this class by December 31st. What this says to me is this is an enrollment tool to get kids to apply in the fall to take this free class. And I'm not even sure if you're just getting credit at Northeastern or if you can take this credit somewhere else. But what this is an enrollment tool to make kids send in their applications in the fall, and then they get this access to this free course. You know, I'm just telling you what's going on. I don't have good rationale behind it all. So there's been in the big beautiful bill, there has been some proposals to change borrowing caps. Now, this would cap parental borrowing. One of them would cap parental borrowing at $50,000. Um, Another would um, have a cap of 65,000 per student. It used to be in the Parent Plus loans, you could borrow kind of indefinitely, but that would change it so you can only borrow 50,000 or potentially 65,000 per student total. They're also talking about eliminating subsidized loans. We'll see. There was a pause on garnishing Social Security benefits from those in default on student loans. Um, that is potentially being changed. And I just shared the student loan stuff to say you have to be really mindful when you start to borrow money and in these systems that we have because they can be a little unforgiving. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I talked about this a little bit last month, there was a big article. Jeff Selinga wrote a big article in New York Magazine, and then Ron Lieber followed up in the New York Times about Syracuse going out after May 1st, the deposit deadline, and offering big merit scholarships to students that they had admitted. And, you know, I wonder what the blowback has been at Syracuse. I wonder if Syracuse knew that this would become so public. I wonder if the people above the enrollment management people doing this are like, what the heck if they knew? Because it doesn't reflect well on them. I don't know if Syracuse, and they're kind of moms. Syracuse doesn't say much. I don't know if Syracuse didn't fill their class. They have a pretty big 13, they have about 13% of their students coming internationally. I don't know if they were afraid those students weren't going to come or weren't going to get visas. I don't know the underpinnings of why Syracuse did this, but it's become a giant thing and it doesn't bode well for them down the road. Will everybody next year expect to get giant scholarships in May? So nobody will deposit at Syracuse because they're going to wait to get the extra better offer in May. I don't know. Um, the New York Times on June 20th had a big article, and you know, I'm seeing this stuff everywhere. There is a big, everywhere you read, there's things about program cuts, faculty cuts, tuition hikes. With everything going on, colleges are really getting squeezed, and even really well-endowed colleges with tremendous resources are putting cuts in. And when the most well-endowed schools are putting cuts in, it does not bode well for the schools downstream that don't have those resources. Clark University announced that they were cutting their faculty by 30% over the next 2 years. Um, 3 years ago, they had an enrollment of 705 students in their freshman class. The incoming freshman class is projected to come in at 525. They were hoping for 625, so they're down 20%. Stuff like that is I'm just seeing it everywhere. And I share that to say if you have a sophomore or a junior, you need to try and start to figure out like, okay, if I have a sophomore, my child just finished their sophomore year in high school. What is this campus going to look like in 5 or 6 years? What programs are they going to have? Are they cutting faculty? Are they cutting programs? Are they reducing budgets in ways that's going to impact this campus? What will this campus look like? It's just something to be mindful of. I don't have the answers, but as you look at campuses, it's important to take a, the pulse of what's happening on that campus. Um, in better, more upbeat news, Kean University in New Jersey has announced that they will offer in-state tuition to other Mid-Atlantic students. So students from New York, Delaware, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia can come to, oh, and Washington, D.C. too, can come to Kean University uh, for the cost of an in-state New Jersey student. I'm not writing anything. I am reading. I'm still reading Phil Levine's book, um, a question of fit. It's very dry. It's a very academic book, but he has put together the instant net price calculator, and not every college has it. But if you do go onto the instant net price calculator and a college that your student is looking at is on it, it's going to give you a good read of what the college would expect your family to contribute. Um, College Board had a big article in April. I only recently found it in Bloomberg. And, it talked about how much the College Board, what a role they play. And, every student in the college admissions process is paying a couple of bucks for the PSAT. They're taking the SAT maybe a couple of times. Any AP coursework you take and pay for, they're getting money. If you file the College Scholarship Service profile, I think it's $26 to send it once to colleges for financial aid and $16 thereafter. A typical kid could be sending the College Board $1,000 in this process over their high school career. They have 2 billion in revenue, and David Coleman, the head of it, makes $2 million annually. So the article was just about what a little corner of the market they have here. I love this quote. I posted it on my Instagram account, and I just thought I'd mention it. Netflix had a program called Never Have I Ever, and it chronicles a student through her high school years, and of course, college admissions comes up. And the student sees in the program a very empathetic therapist. And I took a quote from her. She said, "This little college thing, it's just a bump in the road." And I love that. The last thing I will tell you is I was thinking about sometimes parents say to me, "Well, what are you going to do? How do you work?" And sometimes I'm like, because I don't have a fixed pat answer because nobody really ever gets the same two things because every kid's different and this is unique. My work is unique to fit each kid. So I had a kid, we were working a couple weeks ago on their Common App essay, and she was trying to, we were trying to to pull her message to pull her story together. And the next day, we hung up maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night, and the next day at 5:30 in the morning, I was kind of stirring, and it just came to me. I'm like, this is how we pull this story together. This is how we tie it with a bow. And so you just never know where the inspiration is going to come from. And it's hard for me to tell parents that when like they're like, what are you going to do exactly for my child? And I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but I will get inspiration at odd times and say, this is it. And so anyway, that is the bulk of everything going on these days that I have. So I want to talk about going abroad. Um, there's a lot to think about going abroad. And so let's see where to begin. I did a whole year in Madrid, Spain on my university's program. So I went through my university and everything was integrated with them. And, you know, so that's one way to do it. And that's kind of the old-fashioned way. So if you mailed your college applications in with a stamp, then you probably had options to like go for a semester or a year, and it tended to be junior year, more or less. That's what it used to be. Now it is everything under the sun. Like going abroad can be, um, it could be like 10 days over spring break. It could be part of January before second semester starts. It could be 3 weeks in August. It can be these little pockets of time. It could be a semester. It could be the summer. It can be a year still. So some of these programs have become far more niche. I've seen programs like, medical care in Asia, um, marine science in Fiji, um, very niche oriented. Some of them are very language oriented, linguistic immersion. Some are more just like a general like semester in Vienna. So so understanding what exactly your program is going to be and what language are the classes going to be taught in is an important question. Are you going to be taught by professors from your college, or are you going to be taught by professors from somewhere else, even if you go on your college's program? So when you go to a college and you are looking, even if you're just in the admissions process and you're going to tour college, I see it everywhere I go. Everywhere I go says, you can go anywhere. You can go, we have our own programs and you can go on anybody else's programs. And that's, you know, you can go anywhere. Okay, great. But what does that mean exactly? And some of the questions you have to ask yourself are, if I'm not going on my college's abroad program, what program am I on? Am I going to, Tulane, but I'm going on the University of Minnesota program to Rome? So that's the question is who, exactly am I going? And in those questions, some of that is, where exactly am I living? Am I living with a family? Am I getting my own housing? And how is that housing paid for? Am I paying as I go? Do I go find it? Do you find it for me? Am I living with other Americans? What exactly is the housing? Big question. What exactly is the food situation? If I'm living with a family, are they feeding me? Am I in an apartment with a kitchen? Am I buying the food? Is there a dining hall somewhere? These are all really, important things to know before you go, whether you're going on your school's program or another school's program. Um, Tuition. Whose tuition are you paying? If you go to and if you are in New Jersey and go to Rutgers and you decide to go to, um, not to pick on Syracuse, but you decide to go on Syracuse's program and you're paying Syracuse tuition for a semester, that's going to be a massive jump. So, are you paying the school's tuition? Are you paying are you paying the tuition of the school where you're going? Are you paying your school's tuition and they're paying? How is that getting integrated? One of the biggest questions, if you do not go on your college's program, and I find most colleges, if you're on their program, the credits are not an issue. If you are taking, if you're a government major and you go to Germany and you're taking a government class on your college's program in Germany, those courses should count for your major. But there's two big questions. If you leave your college's perimeter and go abroad on a different college perimeter, a different college program, is credits and grades. So this could go a couple different ways. The first thing is the credits. Are they going to count towards your major? Are they going to count towards any sort of requirements at your school? Or are they just going to be kind of like a general credit on your transcript that you can't use for a distribution requirement or any other kind of requirement or within your major? That's possible. You could go somewhere and they say, well, your school will say, well, yes, we take those credits, but it's not going to count to your major. That's the first question. But another big question is grades. Um, if you have a merit scholarship and you need to maintain a certain GPA and you go abroad and you get, a 2.0 in something and that sucks your GPA down, that could have ramifications for you. Sometimes abroad grades don't translate into the GPA calculation. So there's a lot of little things, nitty-gritty to think about when you're going abroad. Um, I said to my student, you have to go on an abroad program with your university. You cannot start to freelance and go, I don't have the bandwidth. You're already at a big school. I'm not comfortable with this. You got to find your school. So, so that are some things to think about when your kids, everybody says, oh, going abroad, such a great thing. And it is a great thing, but you really want to know. And especially, in the pandemic, I mean, I knew a lot of people that were abroad in the pandemic, and it was like, boom, you're coming home. And so that is something to think about. If there is an emergency, either worldwide, like a pandemic, or your family has an emergency and you need to get your student, how do you do that? Certainly it's easier if you're on your college's program. But if you're going to go outside of your college, you need to figure out, okay, who is my contact if my child, if there was an event that we needed to get a hold of them. So that is going abroad. Now I want to do a deeper dive into that and talk about freshman abroad programs. So this is something that I am seeing more and more of. And so what am I talking about? So a lot of colleges will offer students admission to come after a semester abroad. Like it's essentially spring admit. It's essentially a spring admit to our college with a semester somewhere else. And a lot of times they will give you, specific choices. So one of the things you'll hear a lot about is Verto, VERTO. And Verto is run through the University of New Haven, and they'll send kids out to different parts of the country. Those programs are pretty well received. I've heard a lot of good things of kids coming back from Verto programs. So the school might have their own program somewhere. Um, Northeastern has several programs throughout Europe that they send kids to for first semester. Um, Verto is not is it's affiliated with the University of New Hampshire, but like if you go, to South Carolina or Tennessee might offer you a Verto semester and then to come to campus after that. You are going with Verto, you're not going with the college you're going to attend. There are schools that do have their own programs and they might offer to you as a freshman. Florida State, interestingly enough, offers if you will go abroad for a year, and they have a couple programs in Europe. I don't know why Italy, Germany, and Spain, maybe, but anyway, Florida State has abroad programs for freshmen. If you're admitted, you can apply. But here's the interesting thing. When you come back from Florida State, if you go to the Florida State Year Abroad program, when you come back, you're considered in-state as a tuition paying in-state student. So that could be an attractive program for people. So the thing to know about this is essentially they are enrollment management tools. They will tend to offer it to full pay students. Northeastern, interestingly enough, when you go to their abroad programs, you're actually attending a European university. So you're not eligible for US financial aid if you go on those programs. So they will only offer those programs to full pay students. So um, these schools are using these freshman programs as a tool to make sure that they have a stable class. So what happens in the spring semester is other kids go abroad, kids who maybe didn't make it through the first semester, they know that they might need more people coming in that semester. And so that's what it is really, is a way to kind of manage and make sure that they have a pipeline of kids coming in the spring semester. So um what happens with those freshman spring, those where the freshmen fall abroad spring admit, it's essentially a spring admit, and it tends to happen at a school where maybe it's a little bit of a reach for you, and they'll try to capture you with an admit like that. So that's all I have on going abroad. It's just a lot of details when your kid is going off to college and says, "I want to go abroad in 10th in junior, sophomore, junior year." And you're like, "Great, super." But when you actually go to do it, a lot of things to think about. So I hope that was helpful for you. I will be back August 1st with I don't know what. I don't quite have a plan for August 1st. But I'm sure something will come to mind, and I hope you have a good summer and reach out if you have any questions.